The crystal chandeliers of the Waldorf ballroom throw diamonds of light across polished marble, gilded columns, and faces painted with money. Journalists cluster near the stage, cameras ready. The Stanton and Vanderbilt families have never shared a headline like this, and New York high society has never smelled blood in the water quite so strongly. Isabella Stanton stands at the end of the crimson aisle, fingers clenched around a bouquet of champagne roses. The satin of her couture gown whispers when she shifts her weight. Flashbulbs pop every few seconds, catching the calm curve of her mouth and the faint tremble at the edge of it. Her mother, Eleanor Stanton, hovers at the first row, smiling with the brittle grace of a woman who has hosted 100 galas and never once dropped a glass. Her father, Charles Stanton, stands beside her in a tailored tuxedo, jaw set, hands behind his back, as if they are at a board meeting instead of a celebration. The string quartet swells into a new arrangement. Isabella lifts her chin, searching the far end of the ballroom for the familiar broad shoulders that are supposed to move toward her. Nicholas Vanderbilt does step into the light. He is in a midnight suit, every line of it screaming heir to an old fortune. His dark hair is slicked back, his expression unreadable. The crowd turns to him as one, expectation humming in the air. But Nicholas is not alone. Olivia Hart glides at his side, hand resting on his arm like she was born there. Her dress is a sleek slice of silver, glittering under the chandeliers, her red lips curved in the soft sort of smile that wins over investors and enemies. Heat drains from Isabella's face. The music falters, then dies completely. The murmur of the crowd rises in its place, a wave of confusion and excitement. Cameras adjust. Microphones tilt toward the stage, hungry. Eleanor's fingers fly to her pearls. Charles takes a single step forward, then stops, as if his shoes have been nailed to the floor. Nicholas ignores the aisle where Isabella waits. He leads Olivia straight to the stage, expression as smooth as glass. He takes the microphone from the host with easy entitlement, and turns to face the room. Isabella hears her own heartbeat in her ears. "Nicholas," she calls out, voice small against the vaulted ceiling. "What are you doing?" He looks at her then. There is no warmth in his eyes. Only a faint, almost bored annoyance, like she interrupted a meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nicholas says, his voice cutting clean through the whispers. "Thank you for joining us tonight. I am afraid there has been a change of plans." The word change slices straight through Isabella's spine. "Tonight was meant to celebrate my engagement to Isabella Stanton." He continues. "But I refuse to build my future on a lie. I will not marry a woman who has nothing to offer beyond a pretty face and a trust fund." The ballroom explodes into gasps. Someone drops a glass, it shatters loud enough to punctuate his words. Isabella's grip loosens. Her bouquet slips, petals bruising as it hits the red carpet. Her throat closes around a sudden, sharp ache. "Is this some kind of joke?" Eleanor whispers to Charles. Charles does not answer. His eyes are fixed on Nicholas, cold and sharp. Nicholas lifts his chin. Isabella is a charming girl. She rides horses. She paints when she is bored. She shops. She attends charity luncheons. But she does not understand business. She has never read a financial report in her life. "I need a partner, not a decoration." The word decoration lands heavier than the chandeliers above. Isabella feels hundreds of eyes slide over her, measuring the fall of her hair, the line of her waist, the emptiness they are suddenly invited to see. Olivia leans into the microphone, voice dripping sugar. "Marriage is a merger," she says. "It should be about mutual benefit. Strong plus strong. Otherwise, it is just a costume party." A ripple of mean laughter runs through the second row, where a group of socialites whisper behind manicured hands. Isabella's chest burns. "Nicholas, stop," she says, stepping forward, heels sinking into the carpet. "You are humiliating me. We can talk about this in private." Nicholas turns his full stare on her, using the stage like a shield. "There is nothing to talk about. I refuse to chain myself to a woman who brings no value to the table." Olivia understands international markets. She has contacts in Dubai and Hong Kong. "She is already helping me negotiate a deal that will increase our global footprint by 30%. What do you offer me, Isabella, besides paintings and polo matches?" Eleanor makes a choked sound. Charles's hands curl into fists. Isabella's vision blurs. The chandeliers double and swim. She tastes the sting of humiliation on her tongue. Olivia's smile widens just enough to be cruel. "Isabella," she says, tilting her head. "I am sorry, but this is how the world works. Pretty is not enough anymore." The crowd leans in. Phones record. The humiliation is no longer confined to the ballroom. It is already on its way to every screen in the city. Isabella looks from Nicholas to Olivia to the sea of faces hungry for drama. She sees pity on some, satisfaction on others, and thinly veiled delight on more than she wants to count. She hears the echo of every offhand comment from childhood. You do not need to worry about work, sweetheart. The Stanton name will protect you. Leave the numbers to the men. You are our little princess. Every word that kept her in a glass case now cuts like it was sharpened overnight. Her knees threaten to buckle. She steadies herself and lifts her chin. The overhead lights catch the faint shimmer of tears in her eyes, but her voice, when it comes, is clear. Nicholas, she says, walking up onto the stage without waiting for an invitation. The train of her gown drags across the steps, gathering whispers in its wake. You are right about one thing. The crowd holds its breath. I do not understand your family business. She continues. Because no one ever thought I needed to. They decided for me that I was better suited to smiling and decorating charity auctions. That was your mistake. That was my mistake. She turns, facing the audience, letting every camera capture her from the front, not from below. But do not confuse how others treated me with what I am capable of. Isabella says. Do not mistake a cage for a lack of wings. A hush falls so quickly that Isabella can hear the soft hum of the chandelier bulbs. Tonight, you chose to throw me away like a useless accessory. She says to Nicholas. You did it in front of everyone we know, because you thought I would shatter, and you would walk away untouched. Isabella's fingers uncurl at her sides. She feels the tremor there, and lets it harden into something sharp. Remember this moment, she says. Because the next time my name is on your tongue, it will not be as the girl you humiliated. It will be as the woman you can no longer afford to stand next to. Olivia scoffs. Empty threats do not change the balance sheet. Isabella's gaze flicks to her, ice over fire. You like numbers, Olivia? Here is one. Tonight, you cost me a fiancé. In return, I will cost you every room you thought you were entitled to walk into. A few people clap, uncertain, then stop when Nicholas glares. Eleanor lifts her chin, blood flushing back into her face. Charles's eyes soften with something dangerously close to pride. Isabella reaches down, unbuckles her heels, and steps out of them. The ballroom gasps again, as she stands barefoot on the expensive carpet, white gown flowing around her like storm clouds. I refuse to let you be the one who defines my worth, she says. Not you. Not anyone in this room. She looks at her parents. I am sorry this is not the night you wanted for me, she says. But I promise you, it will not be the end of my story. Then Isabella turns away from Nicholas and Olivia, and the glittering crowd. She walks off the stage, past the fallen bouquet, past the flashing cameras, head high, barefoot and shaking but unbroken. No one stops her. The doors to the ballroom swing open and close behind her with a thud that echoes like a starting gun. The princess just walked out of the castle, and for the first time in her life, the world feels too big and terrifying and wide. But in the space where her engagement ring was supposed to be, something fierce begins to burn. The headlines hit the next morning. Abandoned heiress bears her claws. Socialite dumped for powerhouse strategist. Vanderbilt chooses brains over beauty. The photos are worse. One is a freeze frame of Isabella's shocked face as the bouquet falls. Another catches her bare feet on the red carpet, the hem of her gown slightly askew, eyes blazing. The media does not care that her hands were shaking. They care that it sells. In the Stanton townhouse on Fifth Avenue, the staff moves like ghosts. Eleanor hides in her suite with a headache, refusing calls. Charles sits in his study with the financial section spread out like armor, refusing to look at the tabloids tossed on his desk. Isabella stands in the kitchen in leggings and an oversized t-shirt, scrolling through article after article. The comments blur. Some call her a spoiled brat who finally got told no. Others declare her a victim of a brutal public breakup. Very few ask what she wants. Eleanor sweeps in, silk robe swishing. Bella, turn that thing off, she says, plucking the phone from Isabella's hand. You are only torturing yourself. I am educating myself, Isabella says quietly. Apparently everyone in this city has an opinion about me. I should at least read the charges. The only charge that matters is the one you brought on this family, Charles says from the doorway. His voice is tired, not cruel, but it still lands like a slap. We spent decades building our reputation. Last night you gave the vultures a feast. Isabella flinches. I did not tell Nicholas to ambush me. You certainly helped him, he says, parading around without a clue what his world requires. You could have learned. You chose not to. Eleanor's hand tightens around her coffee cup. Charles, that is enough. No, Isabella says, throat tight. It is not enough. Tell me everything you think I did wrong so I do not repeat it. Charles studies her, surprised by the steel in her voice. You lived as if your life was a charity gala that never ended. He says slowly. We offered to bring you into the family office. You refused. We suggested you intern with one of our partners. You laughed. You were content to be adored. That complacency made you easy to discard. The words sink in, heavy and ugly. So the solution is what? She asks. Beg Nicholas to reconsider? Apologize for not being the right kind of useful decoration? Eleanor sets her cup down with a sharp clink. No one is asking you to beg, she says. But if you reach out, if you show him you are willing to change, maybe this can be salvaged. The Stantons and Vanderbilts together are stronger than apart. That is just reality. Isabella looks between them. The walls feel closer than the city outside. For you, the marriage is a merger, she says. For him, it is leverage. For me, it is a life. I am the only one who has to wake up to his eyes every morning. Eleanor's shoulders slump. We just do not want you to be alone. I would rather be alone than be owned, Isabella says. The room goes quiet. Later that afternoon, when the townhouse empties out, and the staff retreats to the far wing, Isabella takes a deep breath and opens her banking app. The numbers are smaller than she is used to seeing. Her father froze her primary accounts, a neat punishment wrapped in a line item. The trust fund is untouchable until she turns 30. She has a modest allowance account that has not seen much use because she rarely needed it. Now it looks like the only lifeboat left. She could stay, could swallow her pride, could let her parents orchestrate an apology tour, or she could leave. The suitcase on her bed fills faster than she expects. Jeans, sweaters, comfortable shoes she usually only wears at the stable, a canvas roll of paintbrushes, and a battered metal tin of oils she used in college. When she comes downstairs with the luggage handle in hand, Eleanor is in the foyer. You are leaving, her mother says. It is not a question. Yes, Isabella says. If I stay, I will spend the rest of my life proving I am sorry. If I go, I have a small chance to prove I am more than they think. Eleanor's eyes glisten. You have never had a job. You have never paid a bill. Do you know how hard life is out there, Bella? No, Isabella admits. That is the problem. Eleanor swallows. Your father and I did not raise you to suffer. You raised me to be protected. Isabella says gently. Protection became a cage. I need to learn what my hands can do when no one is catching me. For a moment, Eleanor looks like she might argue. Then something in her expression shifts, softens. She steps forward and pulls Isabella into a tight hug. You are my little girl, she whispers. I do not know how to watch you walk into pain. Isabella holds on as if she can store the warmth for later. Maybe I will find something better than pain, she says. Maybe I will find myself. Eleanor presses a key into her palm. Storage unit in Brooklyn, she says. We put some of your old things there when we renovated. There are paintings, easels, boxes of half-finished projects. If you are going to start over, you might as well have the pieces of who you used to be. Isabella blinks hard. Thank you. She leaves the townhouse by the side door, away from the main entrance where photographers lurk. She calls a rideshare, watches the familiar skyline slide past the car window, each glittering tower a reminder of a life she is stepping away from. The apartment she finds is a walk-up in Brooklyn, with peeling paint, and a stubborn front door. The landlord, a broad-shouldered woman with tattoos and kind eyes, hands her the keys after a very basic background check. First in last month, the landlord says. No parties that show up on social media, no smoking. If the plumbing screams, just jiggle the faucet until it stops or call me. Isabella hands over the envelope of cash with fingers that feel strangely light. I can do that. The apartment is small and smells faintly of someone else's cooking oil. The radiator hisses against the wall. There is a single narrow window that looks out over the street market that springs up every weekend. Isabella stands in the center of the room with her suitcase by her feet. There is no marble here, no staff, no polished silver, just bare floorboards and the soft hum of traffic. She breathes in. Then she opens the suitcase and begins to unpack. In the days that follow, she discovers the cost of every small thing. Groceries, transit passes, laundry coins. She burns her first attempt at cooking pasta and eats cereal for dinner. Her palms blister carrying canvases up 3 flights of stairs from the storage unit. But she also discovers something else. She can survive her own mistakes. One Saturday, she hauls a foldable table down to the sidewalk market. She lines it with canvases from her storage unit, paintings of flowers and faceless women, and city skylines at dusk. She writes a price on a scrap of cardboard and weighs it down with a jar of brushes. Art sale. She calls, trying to sound braver than she feels. Original paintings, signed. No prints. People wander past. Some glance and keep walking. A teenager stops to look at a painting of a girl standing on a rooftop with her arms outstretched. A couple argues quietly over whether they can afford the small canvas of a storm breaking over Central Park. Late in the afternoon, a man pauses in front of the table. He is in his early 30s, in a crisp navy shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. His hair is a little messy, as if he has run his fingers through it a dozen times that day. He carries a worn leather messenger bag and a paper cup of coffee. His gaze moves slowly from one canvas to another. He does not skim. He studies. Isabella watches him, heart picking up. There is no recognition in his eyes, no flicker of "oh, that girl, the one from the headlines." Just consideration. He stops at a painting of a single iris, its petals streaked with shades of blue and violet, razor-thin lines of silver slicing through the background like shards of frost. "How much for this one?" he asks. "50. She says, then immediately wonders if that is outrageous or desperate. He smiles faintly. "You are undercharging." He pulls his wallet from his bag and sets $100 bill on the table. "Keep the change." Isabella stares. "You have not even tried to haggle." "I do not haggle when I know what something is worth," he says. He picks up the canvas with careful hands. "You have an interesting relationship with line. You treat it like a blade and a ribbon at the same time. Is that a compliment?" she asks. "A big one," he says. "I am Elliot Wright." He offers his hand. She hesitates, then shakes it. "Isabella," she says. The name still tastes like it belongs to someone else. "Isabella Stanton." His brows lift slightly, but he does not flinch or apologize or launch into gossip. "Nice to meet you, Isabella Stanton," he says simply. "I work with gemstones for a living. The way you pull detail out of your shadows reminds me of how light breaks inside a stone. Have you ever thought about designing jewelry instead of painting it?" She blinks. "Jewelry. Metal, stones, structure, light," Elliot says. "It is all composition. Your lines could live in gold and silver just as easily as on canvas. Maybe better." She laughs, a short surprised sound. "My ex-fiancé called me a useless decoration. I am not sure I am ready to jump into the decoration business." "Then do not think of it as decoration," Elliot says. "Think of it as architecture small enough to wear. There is serious money in it. Serious art too, if you do it right." He scribbles on the back of his business card and hands it to her. "If you ever want to see what I mean, come by this address. I have a workshop in the Diamond District. We usually only see pieces after designers are done with them. But I have some friends who would kill to meet someone who sees line the way you do." She studies the card. "Elliot Wright, gemologist." The letters are embossed, but not flashy. "You do not even know if I am serious," she says. He nods at the table of canvases, at the faint streak of paint on the cuff of her shirt. "You dragged your art onto a sidewalk and asked strangers to put a price on it," he says. "That is already more serious than half the trust fund kids I know." Elliot tucks the iris painting under his arm. "Think about it," he says. "You deserve better headlines than the ones you have." When he walks away, the street feels different. Isabella looks down at the card in her hand. For the first time since she walked out of the ballroom, the burn in her chest shifts into something that feels suspiciously like possibility. The Diamond District smells like polish, metal shavings, and the faint tang of burned solder. It is a different kind of wealth than the one Isabella was born into. Less marble, more sweat. Less opera boxes, more counting rooms. Elliot meets her at the corner of 47th and 6th, as promised. He looks the same as he did on the sidewalk, except for the magnifying loop hanging from a cord around his neck. "You came," he says, pleased but not smug. "I told myself I was just visiting a customer," she replies. "Then I got lost twice and almost went home." "Good thing you did not," he says. "Come on, I will show you my world." His workshop is on the 5th floor of an old building, its lobby lined with security cameras. Inside the suite, glass cases display loose stones like stars fallen into velvet. Workbenches line the walls, cluttered with tiny pliers, flames, scales, and lenses. "This is where we test and grade stones for various houses," Elliot explains, slipping into his professional cadence. "Clarity, cut, color, carat. It is all numbers and angles. But if you listen closely, every stone tells a story before we ever write a report." He hands her a loupe and positions a small square diamond under a lamp. Look. She leans in. The world shrinks to facets and fire. The diamond becomes a maze of reflections. You see the way the light catches along this edge? He asks. That is where your lines could live. Not on the stone itself, but in the metal that holds it. Imagine that iris painting of yours, but built in silver, hugging a stone instead of a canvas. He sets the diamond down and picks up a plain silver band. Jewelry designers draw in 3 dimensions. He says. They have to think about weight, balance, how a piece feels on the skin. It is art you can live with. Isabella runs her finger along the band. It sounds like engineering and emotion had a child. Exactly. He says. And yes, there is plenty of surface-level glitter. But there are also people who build pieces that become heirlooms, talismans, armor. I think you might be one of them if you want to be. He introduces her to Lila, a veteran designer with silver hair and half-moon glasses. Lila flips through Isabella's sketchbook, eyes narrowing, and then widening as she turns each page. You do not draw jewelry, Lila says. You draw movement. Is that bad? Isabella asks. That is why I am going to make you miserable, Lila says, snapping the sketchbook shut. You have lines in your head that need discipline. If you can handle blisters and failure, come back tomorrow at 8. We will see if you can turn a flower into a ring without making it look like a child's costume. Isabella glances helplessly at Elliot. He only grins. Congratulations, he says. You have been insulted by Lila. That is the first step of any proper education. The next months are brutal and beautiful. Isabella learns to see metal not as something cold and unforgiving, but as a willing accomplice that can be bent, coaxed, and hammered into shape. She burns her fingers on soldering irons, breaks saw blades, and cries once in a bathroom stall, when a ring she worked on for 4 days collapses under the torch. Lila does not coddle her. You think this is hard? Lila asks one night, sliding a mug of coffee across the table. Try building a business on top of it, while people call you shallow in glossy magazines. There is a glint of understanding in her gaze that makes Isabella wonder what Lila gave up to sit at this bench. Elliot is there too, between client meetings, between trips to examine stones for auction houses. He brings her new types of gems to study, explains inclusions and fractures, teaches her how to tell a lab-grown stone from one pulled out of the earth long before she was born. He never treats her like a charity project. He treats her like a colleague in rough draft. When Isabella is not at the workshop, she is at her tiny kitchen table, sketching until her wrist cramps. Dormant parts of her brain wake up under the weight of constraint. A ring cannot simply be pretty. It has to hold up to daily life. An earring cannot just dangle, it has to balance. She names her fledgling brand Iris, after the painting that bought her an introduction to this world, and after the flower that refused to wilt on her canvas. The first collection she designs is called Thorned Iris. Not subtle, maybe, but honest. The pieces are slender bands of silver and white gold that twist like stems, their ends flaring into sharp, stylized petals. Small diamonds and colored stones nestle between the curves, capturing light and flinging it back in unexpected directions. When she pins the sketches on the board, Lila taps one with a pencil. This one, she says. It has teeth. It is not a polite little flower. Good. Elliot picks up another sketch, smiling. This one feels like you, he says. It looks delicate until you notice the spine. Will anyone buy jewelry that looks like it might bite them? Isabella asks. Women who are tired of being pretty and harmless, Lila says. Which is all of us. Isabella spends her last savings on a small batch of prototypes, trusting Lila's connections to find a manufacturing partner who will not cheat them. She builds a website with trembling fingers, writes copy that sounds like a manifesto disguised as marketing. Jewelry for women who were told to sit still and smile. Metal for those who refused. The night before the launch, Isabella cannot sleep. She sits on the roof of her building with a blanket around her shoulders, watching the city pulse. Somewhere uptown, the life she left behind is unfolding without her, full of benefits and galas and quiet, condescending sympathy. Down here, the only thing guaranteed is rent. Her phone buzzes beside her. A message from an unknown number appears. Saw the promo you posted for Iris. Lila showed the team. You ready for tomorrow? She smiles and types back. Ready to find out if everyone was right about me, or if I was right about me. A moment later, Elliot responds. For what it is worth, I have never met anyone more terrifyingly right about themselves when they decide to be. She tucks the phone away and looks at the skyline. Tomorrow. She whispers to the dark. You are going to know my name for a reason I chose. The launch is messy and imperfect. The website crashes once under the weight of more visitors than the cheap hosting can handle. 2 orders go through without proper shipping addresses. The payment processor holds the first day's funds for review, suspicious of a sudden spike from a brand new company. But by midnight, Isabella has sold almost every piece in the first batch. Her inbox is full of messages from women who write paragraphs instead of notes. Women who say they were the good daughters, the quiet employees, the discarded fiancés, the overlooked ones sitting at the edge of the polished table. Women who say they want something sharp on their bodies to remind themselves they can cut through. Isabella reads every message. She cries over some, laughs at others, and prints one to tape over her desk. I saw the photos of you at that party, one woman writes. I have never seen someone look so destroyed and so angry at the same time. When I read what he said about you being useless, I thought about all the times my ex called me dead weight. I am buying your ring because I want to look at my hand and remember, I am not something people get to throw away. 2 weeks later, when a small fashion influencer posts a picture of herself wearing a thorned iris ring and tags the brand, sales triple overnight. That is how the invitation arrives. Dear Ms. Stanton, we are curating emerging designers for a collaborative showcase at New York Fashion Week. Your work for Iris has come to our attention as a compelling new voice in jewelry design. We would be honored if you would consider presenting a capsule collection during our show. Sincerely, Celeste Marlowe, Creative Director, Marlowe Collective. Isabella stares at the email until the words blur. Fashion Week. The same ecosystem of cameras and whispers that once watched her fall apart now wants to see what she builds. She forwards the email to Lila and Elliot with shaking hands. Lila replies in 5 minutes. You are about to work harder than you ever thought possible. Welcome to the real game. Elliot calls her. When you first came into the workshop, you looked like the world had just set you on fire. He says. I think this is where you find out what you can forge from that. Her mind flickers, unbidden, to Nicholas, to Olivia, to the way the room leaned in when she broke on stage. If they come to this show, they will see something very different. Then let us give them something worth staring at, she says. The backstage area of the Fashion Week venue is a controlled chaos of fabrics, hairspray, and adrenaline. Models stand in various states of undress, designers fuss over hemlines and hems, assistants run errands with clipboards and coffee. Isabella stands at her small station, a simple table lined with iris pieces. Each one gleams under the harsh fluorescent lights. Thorned iris has grown teeth since the launch. She has expanded the collection with chokers, ear cuffs, and bracelets that curl around wrists like protective vines. She wears black again, like the last time she was under this much scrutiny. This time there is no silk gown, no train, just tailored pants, a fitted blazer, and a thin silver chain at her throat. Her stomach flips when she steps toward the curtain that leads to the audience. She peeks through a narrow gap. The room is full. Editors, buyers, influencers. The familiar knot of old society names near the front, their jewelry and last names heavy enough to command seating priority. And in the second row, exactly where she should have expected him, sits Nicholas Vanderbilt. He is as polished as ever, suit crisp, watch gleaming. Olivia sits beside him in a dress that looks screamingly expensive, and just a little desperate in this new crowd, her smile stretched tight. Isabella's heart kicks hard against her ribs. Of course they are here. Fashion Week is a power map. Everyone who wants to stay relevant shows up. She could hide backstage and pretend she never saw them, but she did see them. And she did not spend sleepless nights soldering and sketching just to cower now. Hey. Elliot's voice is quiet behind her. You good? She does not look away from the gap. He is here, she says. The idiot. Elliot says without asking who. Let him watch you. She takes a breath and lets it out. Part of me wants to walk over there and pour red wine on his shoes. You could, Elliot says. But then he would be the story again. I prefer the version where he is just a blurry background in yours. She turns to look at him. His tie is crooked, as if he pulled it on while running between appointments. There is a little ink smudge on his thumb from marking last-minute stone reports. You always know exactly what to say, she murmurs. I work with very dramatic diamonds, he says. You learn what to say to things that crack under pressure. The show begins. Designers take turns sending their dreams down the runway. Fabric and light and music blur together. Then the stage assistant signals that it is time. Iris up, she calls. Isabella positions the models herself. Chokers fastened, rings adjusted. ear cuffs angled to catch the light. Remember, she tells the models. You are not delicate, you are dangerous. They smile, shoulders squaring, and step onto the runway. The lights shift to a cool white. The music drops into a low, pulsing rhythm. One by one, the models walk, thorned iris catching every beam, scattering it like shards. In the crowd, phones rise like a forest. Isabella watches from the wings, pulse thundering, as her sketches become movement. Her eyes find Nicholas in the second row. He is not bored. His jaw is tight, his gaze locked on the jewelry. His fingers curl around the program in his lap, crumpling the edges. Olivia leans over to say something. He barely seems to hear. When the last model leaves the runway, the announcer's voice fills the space. And now, please welcome the designer behind Iris, Isabella Stanton. Sound fades. Pressure fills her ears. For a heartbeat, she is back in the ballroom, walking toward a different stage. This time she walks out not in satin and fear, but in black and steel. The applause is immediate, then louder when the cameras find her face. The front row leans in, murmuring. Someone from a magazine she grew up reading whispers to her neighbor and points at the thorned iris choker. Isabella reaches the end of the runway and turns. For an instant, her gaze lands square on Nicholas. Their eyes lock. A year ago, she would have read every twitch of his expression, would have searched for approval or tenderness. Now she sees something clearer: regret. She gives the room a small, controlled smile and a nod. Then she walks back off the runway. Backstage, people clap her on the shoulder and congratulate her. Celeste Marlowe hugs her enthusiastically, perfume clinging to Isabella's blazer. You just made half the front row scribble your name. Celeste crows. Get ready. They are going to be calling. Elliot waits by her table with 2 glasses of cheap champagne. To the girl who made steel bloom, he says, offering one. She takes it, laughing. To the man who bought a painting off a street and changed my life. They clink glasses. The after party is a blur of handshakes, business cards, and praise. Buyers from boutiques in Los Angeles and London request appointments. A stylist for an actress asks to borrow pieces for a red carpet. A jewelry editor requests an interview. Isabella keeps her responses professional, her smile steady. On the inside, she is dizzy with relief, gratitude, and a sharp thread of vindication. It cannot last forever. When she steps into the quiet of a service hallway to catch her breath, the universe punishes her with exactly what she should have expected. Bella. The voice she once thought she would hear at the altar. She freezes, every muscle remembering a different kind of stage. Nicholas stands a few feet away, hands in his pockets. His tie is loosened, his eyes shadowed. For the first time since she has known him, he looks like someone who has not slept well in a long time. I prefer Isabella these days, she says. He flinches at the distance in her tone. Right, Isabella, you were amazing out there. She leans against the wall, keeping space between them. You hated fashion shows. You used to complain they were just excuses for people to drink free champagne and pretend they understood art. I still think that, he says. But I came anyway. Because you have suddenly developed an appreciation for jewelry? She asks. Because I heard you were showing. He says simply. Because I have spent a year watching your name pop up in places I never imagined, and every time it does, I remember the look on your face on that stage. He takes a step forward. She straightens, eyes narrowing. Do not. She warns. I need to say this. He insists. I was wrong. Brutally, unforgivably wrong. I thought I needed a partner who could sit in boardrooms and read quarterly reports. I thought that made me practical. All I did was prove I was a coward who could not imagine a woman being more than a trophy or a rival. He laughs once, humorless. I chose a woman who promised to help me expand into markets that did not even exist. Olivia was smoke and mirrors. You were a flame. I was too stupid to see which one actually kept me warm. Rage and satisfaction war in Isabella's chest. You humiliated me, she says, voice low. You did not just change your mind. You tore me apart in public to sell a story about yourself as a visionary. You did it because you knew it would make you look strong. His face crumples. I know. I have replayed it 1,000 times. If I could take it back, I would burn every headline and every deal for the chance to do that night over. You cannot, she says. You do not get to start my story for me and then claim editing rights. I am not asking to rewrite your life, he says desperately. I am asking for a chance to be in it again, in any capacity, as a friend, as a partner, as someone who believes in you now. She laughs, astonished. Now that I have a brand people talk about? Now that buyers want meetings? Now that I am something you can put on a slide deck and call a success story? Do you think that is all this is? He asks. I have spent months trying to reach you. Your parents would not tell me where you were. I hired a private investigator. He found you on a sidewalk selling paintings, said you told him to leave you alone. I watched you climb out of what I pushed you into, and I have never hated myself more. Good. She says. Hate yourself. That is between you and your conscience. He moves closer, voice breaking. I miss you. The way you laugh at my worst jokes. The way you fall asleep halfway through movies you picked. The way you always tried to find a way to make everyone in a room comfortable, even when they did not deserve it. I miss the girl who used to bring me coffee when I forgot to eat. That girl died on that stage. Isabella says. You killed her when you said she had nothing to offer. He flinches again. Silence stretches between them. You are not that girl anymore. He says eventually. I see that. You are sharper now, stronger. But when you walked that runway, I felt proud. I wanted to stand and clap until my hands hurt. You do not get to feel proud of me. She snaps. You did not build this. You did not sit in that workshop until 2 a.m. sanding metal until my hands shook. You did not answer emails from women who told me your voice sounded just like their exes. You do not get to stand at the finish line and pretend you ran the race. His shoulders slump. Then what do I get? You get to live with the knowledge that you threw away something extraordinary because you wanted a balance sheet more than a beating heart. She says. You get to sit in every future audience and watch me succeed without you if you can stomach it. Or you can look away. Either way, I will not be dragging you with me. Footsteps echo behind them. Elliot appears at the end of the hall, scanning until he finds her. His gaze flicks over Nicholas, cool and assessing, before settling on Isabella's face. Everything okay here? He asks. Yes. Isabella says. We were just finished. Nicholas stares at Elliot, at the easy way he stands near her, at the unspoken trust in the space between them. You replaced me. Nicholas says quietly. No. Isabella says. I grew. Elliot met the version of me you tried to break, and decided she was worth investing in. That is not replacement. That is recognition. Nicholas opens his mouth, then closes it again. There is nothing left to say. He walks away down the hall, hands still in his pockets, shoulders less square than when he came. Elliot waits until he is gone, then steps closer. You okay? He asks again. She exhales, the breath shuddering out of her. I thought I wanted to see him crumble. She admits. Now I just feel tired. That is what happens when ghosts show up uninvited. He says gently. Come on. You have buyers waiting to talk about reorder schedules. That is a much better use of your energy than resuscitating a mistake. She looks up at him, at the steadiness there. Thank you. She says. For what? He asks. For standing on my side of the line without needing to hear both sides first. She says. He smiles. That is what people who care about you do. He says. They do not stand in the middle and call it fairness while you bleed. She swallows the sudden lump in her throat and lets him lead her back toward the noise, where her future is waiting with 1,000 hungry hands. Success does not just bring orders and press, it brings enemies. By the time Iris is 2 years old, the brand is stocked in boutiques from New York to Tokyo. Isabella has hired a small team, moved into a studio that does not share a wall with anyone's bedroom, and learned to speak in spreadsheets as fluently as she does in sketches. Her days are a blur of design meetings, supply chain decisions, and customer feedback. Her nights are often spent at the workbench, chasing one last curve of metal into submission. When the first accusation hits, it arrives as a whisper. An anonymous post on a forum complains that Iris designs are eerily similar to a cheap line being sold online. A blurry photo compares a thorned iris ring to a piece on a discount site, the shapes crudely echoed in dull metal. Isabella frowns at it in her office, fingers drumming on the desk. Someone copied us. She says. Lila snorts. Congratulations. That means you matter. But the whispers multiply. A blogger picks up the story. A competitor retweets it with a vague caption about respecting original work. Customers begin to email, confused and worried they bought from a thief instead of a creator. Then a glossy magazine, one that once ran a glowing profile on Isabella's rise, publishes an article. From heiress to hack, did Isabella Stanton steal her way to the top? The piece includes photos of the discount knockoffs next to Iris originals. The author implies that Isabella stole designs from small unbranded makers and slapped her name on them. Unbelievable. Isabella mutters, slamming the magazine down. They did not even bother to check timestamps. Elliot leans over her shoulder, jaw tight. Those knockoffs went live 3 months after your launch. He says. The metadata is clear. Whoever is behind this is counting on people not understanding how timelines work. I will sue them. Isabella says. Whoever is manufacturing these fakes, whoever is laundering their story, I will burn them down. Then you will need more than righteous indignation. Lila says. You will need proof. They start digging. Elliot uses his contacts to trace the supply chain of the knockoffs. The cheap metal, the low-grade stones, the factories used. Isabella's lawyers file subpoenas and preservation notices, warning companies not to destroy records. Behind the scenes, someone else is working just as hard to stay hidden. One night, as Isabella is going through email after a long day of meetings, a message pops up from an unknown address. Check the attached contract. Then check who signed it. Her cursor hovers over the file for a fraction of a second. She forwards it to her head of security, Max, first. Scan this. She instructs. If there is any malware, I want to know before I open it. 10 minutes later, Max replies. Document is clean. Open when ready. Also, whoever sent this is using a disposable server. They know what they are doing. Isabella opens the file. It is a manufacturing agreement between a shell company and a factory in Shenzhen. The designs attached are crude, simplified versions of thorned iris pieces. The payment schedule is aggressive. The projected margins are obscene. At the bottom of the document is a signature, Olivia Hart. Isabella's laugh comes out sharp and disbelieving. Of course. She prints the contract and slaps it down on the conference table the next morning. She could have simply moved on. Lila says. Marry someone else, ruin someone else's reputation. But she chose to build a business model around knocking you off, and then crying thief. She cannot stand that I did not crawl back. Isabella says. She cannot stand that I became someone she cannot outdress or outflirt. Lucky for us, she is not as smart as she thinks. Max says. She left a trail even I can follow. Isabella makes a decision. She schedules a press conference. The Stanton name still has enough weight to draw reporters quickly, especially when attached to scandal. The day of the conference, cameras line the back of the rented hall. Bloggers jostle with mainstream media for front row spots. Isabella steps up to the podium in a tailored white suit. The ring on her finger is thorned iris, the first one she ever made, the metal worn smooth against her skin. 2 years ago, a man stood on a stage and told the world I had nothing to offer. She says, voice steady. Tonight, I am here to talk about what happens when someone tries to take from me what I built afterward. She clicks the remote in her hand. The screen behind her lights up with images of iris designs, then the knockoffs, side by side. These designs were copied. She says. Not the other way around. My team and I have timestamps, prototypes, emails, and witness statements that prove Iris created these pieces first. We also have contracts that connect the knockoff manufacturer to someone who has been in this story before. She clicks again. A red circle appears around the signature at the bottom of the contract. It enlarges until the letters take up the whole screen. Olivia Hart. Isabella says. The room murmurs. Cameras zoom in on the projected name. Miss Hart did not just commission copycat pieces. Isabella continues. She also paid for a coordinated campaign to smear Iris as a plagiarist. She hired anonymous accounts, planted stories, and used her connections to spread lies. All because she could not stand to see the woman her ex-fiancé discarded rise without her. Questions erupt, but Isabella holds up a hand. I am not here to relieve old scandals. She says. I am here to say this. Artists, designers, and small brands have their work stolen every day. Most of them cannot afford lawyers. Most of them do not have the platform I do. I am going to use mine. She lays out the legal steps Iris is taking. The injunctions. The lawsuits. The criminal charges for fraud and defamation being pursued with the district attorney's office. We are not just protecting my brand. She says. We are sending a message that if you try to build an empire out of other people's work, and then call them thieves, you will not just lose the house of cards you built. You will be the one buried under it. A reporter raises his hand. Miss Stanton, do you worry that this will drag your family into another round of bad press? She meets his gaze head on. My family is capable of keeping their own reputations intact. She says. I am responsible for mine. The difference between now and then is that I know exactly what I am fighting for and I am not alone. In the back of the room, Eleanor and Charles sit side by side. Eleanor's eyes shine with tears. Charles looks at his daughter like he is seeing her for the first time. The press conference ends with flashbulbs and shouted questions. Isabella steps off the stage into a flurry of microphones, answers a few more, then lets Max and Lila shield her from the rest. In the weeks that follow, Olivia Hart's world implodes. Evidence piles up. Financial records show payments to troll farms and fake review services. Factory managers roll on her in exchange for leniency. Screenshots leak of messages where she brags about taking that princess down from her fake throne. She is arrested, charged with fraud, intellectual property theft, and conspiracy to defame. When the footage airs of Olivia in handcuffs, head down, hair a mess, Isabella feels no satisfaction, only closure. Nicholas, interviewed outside a courthouse, looks older than his age. I did not know what she was doing, he tells the cameras. But the fact that I did not see it coming is just another sign of how badly I misjudged the women in my life. I hurt Isabella once by believing lies. I will not do it again. Isabella watches the clip on her laptop with Elliot beside her on the couch, their legs tangled. He is not wrong, Elliot says mildly. No. Isabella agrees. He is just very late. Late is better than never, Elliot says. But in this case, never is better than coming back. She smiles, leaning her head on his shoulder. You know you are the only man I let sit this close, when there is retribution playing on the screen, she says. I feel honored, he says, and mildly concerned. They laugh. It is not that the world becomes perfect. Knockoffs still appear. People still question whether she would have made it this far without her last name. Old money circles still whisper, but fear has changed sides. People who once saw her as a soft target now flinch at the idea of crossing her. They have watched her take a hit, fall, get up, build something, and then defend it with teeth. The thorns of Iris are no longer theoretical. 3 years after she walked out of the Waldorf ballroom barefoot, Isabella stands on the marble steps of a Parisian auction house in 6-inch heels, and does not feel like she is going to fall. Inside, the room hums with the tension of people about to spend obscene amounts of money on things they do not need but desperately want. Tonight's star is a one-of-a-kind iris piece. The Starfall Iris, a necklace crafted from white gold and platinum, its central stone a rare blue diamond Elliot spent months sourcing. Around it, petals of metal and smaller stones spread like frozen flame, each edge catching the light in a way that makes the whole piece seem alive. Isabella watches from a balcony as the auctioneer lifts the necklace, describing its craftsmanship and provenance. Cameras flash, paddles rise. The price climbs from numbers she once thought unimaginable into numbers she now discusses over lunch. When the gavel finally comes down, the room applauds. $10 million. Somewhere in New York, a younger version of herself is staring at that number on a screen and realizing she survived the night she thought had destroyed her. After the auction, there is a reception. Champagne, tiny desserts, people wanting photos. Isabella smiles for the cameras, answers questions about the creative process and the challenges of sourcing stones ethically. She speaks about fair wages for miners, about the environmental impact of jewelry, about wanting beauty that does not hide blood in its shine. Elliot appears at her elbow, as he always does in rooms like this. His tie is straight tonight. His eyes are bright. Your necklace just sold for more than some people's entire companies. He murmurs. I would say that qualifies as revenge. This is not revenge, she says. This is proof. Proof of what? He asks. Proof that I was always meant to be more than the accessory, she says. Proof that my worth was never in how well I played by their rules. He smiles. I have known that since the day you tried to charge me $50 for a painting worth 5 times that. Still overpaid, she teases. Not even close, he says. He clears his throat, suddenly nervous. Isabella turns toward him fully, surprised. Elliot Wright is not easily rattled. Walk with me, he says. He leads her out of the crowded hall and onto a terrace that overlooks the city. Paris glows, lights reflecting off the Seine like scattered stars. It is not lost on either of them that 3 years ago, another terrace, another city, another man defined the course of her life for a while. Tonight is different. Elliot reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small velvet box. Her heart stutters. I know you have complicated feelings about rings in public places, he says. So I thought about doing this quietly at home, with pizza. But then I remembered the girl who walked barefoot off a stage and told the world she would make herself impossible to reach. I wanted to ask you this somewhere everyone can see just how far you came. Her throat tightens. He opens the box. Inside is a ring that looks like it belongs to Iris, and also only to her. A band of white gold twists into the shape of an iris stem, a small blue diamond nestled where the petals would be, flanked by tiny thorns carved into the metal. It is not the price tag that matters, he says quickly. It is what it means. You changed my life the day you sold me that painting. You changed it every day after, with your stubbornness, your kindness, your refusal to let anyone write your story for you. I love you, Isabella, every version of you. The sheltered heiress, the furious girl on the stage, the woman who made irises bloom and steal. He drops to one knee. Will you marry me? He asks. Not because it is convenient for our families, not because it looks good in a press release, because you choose me and I choose you, over and over, even when the world is loud and ugly. Tears blur her vision. The city becomes watercolor. 3 years ago, she would have looked to see who was watching. Tonight, she looks only at him. Yes, she says, the word steady and sure. I will marry you. He slips the ring onto her finger. It fits like it has been waiting there all along. Applause breaks out behind them. Isabella turns to see a cluster of guests at the glass doors, phones up, capturing the moment. Among them she recognizes a familiar pair of faces. Eleanor presses a handkerchief to her mouth, eyes shining. Charles looks uncharacteristically undone, pride written clear across his features. Standing slightly apart from them, in a simple suit, is Nicholas. For a heartbeat, their gazes meet. He does not come closer. He does not make a speech or a scene. He simply lifts his glass toward her in a small, solemn toast. She nods once. It is not forgiveness, it is acknowledgement. Later, back in New York, their wedding takes place in Central Park, under an arch woven with irises and thorny branches of silver-sprayed branches made by her team. The guest list is smaller than her parents once imagined it would be. There are more designers and workshop staff than there are socialites. As Isabella walks down the aisle, she is not thinking about the photos that will appear online, or the deals that might be made over dessert. She is thinking about the girl who stood barefoot in a ballroom, heart in pieces, and said she would make herself someone he could not afford. She has done that and more. When the officiant pronounces them husband and wife, when Elliot kisses her and the crowd cheers, when she looks out at a sea of faces that include people who saw her worst day and chose to stay anyway, Isabella feels something settle inside her. Not just triumph, peace. That night, they slip away from the reception and walk through the city, hand in hand, her veil tucked into his jacket pocket, her heels dangling from her fingers. Do you ever think about what your life would be like if he had never broken that engagement? Elliot asks quietly. Sometimes. She admits. I think I would be in some penthouse, wearing jewelry someone else designed, hosting dinners that bored me. I would not know how strong my hands are. I would not know how loud my voice can be. And you would not know me. He says. She smiles. Exactly. They stop at a storefront window where an iris piece sits on a velvet stand, bathed in golden light. A young woman on the sidewalk pauses, looking in, eyes shining with want. One day, she murmurs to her friend, when I get that promotion, when I finally move out, when I am not afraid to spend money on something that is just for me. Isabella's chest tightens. She remembers wanting something that felt impossible, not because of the price, but because of what it meant. She catches the woman's eye and offers a small, conspiratorial smile. Worth the wait, she says. The woman laughs, not recognizing her, just sharing a moment with a stranger. You think so? She asks. I know so, Isabella says. They walk on, the city buzzing around them, the night air cool against their skin. The ring on her finger catches a street lamp, throwing a shard of blue light against the sidewalk. She is still the girl who loves beautiful things. She always will be. The difference now is that the most beautiful thing in her life is not something given or taken by someone else. It is the life she built with her own 2 hands, every thorn, every cut, every polished edge a testament to the fact that when they tried to break her in public, she forged herself in private. And that will always, always be something no one can afford to lose.
Thanks for watching. Follow for more romance stories.